We've got Laura in the UK calling in, wants to talk about the best arguments for converting deists to atheists. Laura, how can we help?
Oh, hi, thank you. Sorry if I've got a bit of a weird voice. I had a chest infection.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, I'm in England and we're a little bit more atheist or non-religious than America, of course, where it's completely mental and it just blows my mind what happens in your country. But
Yeah.
we're all right. Like lots of people call themselves agnostic, non-religious. But I'm quite a hardcore atheist, and I'm like full on, and I love debating people, and it's one of my favourite topics, and I've been listening to the shows for ages. And when I get down to talking to most people in England, they still come down to the deist thing, where if you actually ask them, they call themselves non-religious, then they do believe in like a creator of the universe. And I don't know what to say to them, like, because it's a bit like, okay, you can't prove that. And I was wondering if you had any tools or arguments that like I could like have a good comeback argument to these people.
Well, and everybody's style differs. More and more, the comeback argument is something that I don't know. I'm less interested in, but that's not what you asked. But here's sort of where I would go. I think if someone was talking to me about a deistic God, I would just want to have a conversation about when is it time to take an affirmative position of belief for a claim. So if the claim is there is a creator God, I would want to know when should I get on board with that and be convinced that that's true. And by definition, a deistic God is not one that interacts with reality in any way, right? It's supposed to just kind of be out there. Maybe it's sort of set everything into motion, but then it's hands off. So I would go, how could you know that such a thing exists? And I would probably use good old Russell's teapot to illustrate the idea that the time to believe a claim is when there's evidence to support it. But SR, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I mean, first off, what you said about the understanding of a deist God in and of itself, it kind of grants the fact that you're never going to be able to know any attributes of this thing, right? If you're granting that from the beginning, that's the whole game. It's over now. We can pack up our toys and we can go home. You've already told me that the thing that you accept as real, you don't have the ability to investigate. I would also say though that there is value in just saying to yourself, like, at the very least, the type of God and the understanding of the supernatural that these people have that you're talking to, that don't go to churches every day, aren't actively pushing laws to try and demonize people just because of who they are. That's valuable. It's valuable that we have more people like that than the Westboro Baptist Church type, right?
Oh yeah, don't get me wrong. It's totally brilliant in England with a courted religion. It's just with my position, I can't get why more of them can't take the step to being a full atheist.
So
I'm struggling to find the atheists.
Yeah, well, ask them what would be different about their life. If we woke up tomorrow, whatever the thing is, whether it's the bones of Christ or we prove the Shroud of Turin is wrong again, whatever the answer is for them that would definitively say God is not there, this creator deist God is definitely not there. Ask them, if we found that tomorrow, what would be different about your life? Do you notice any changes whatsoever? And if you don't notice any changes whatsoever, doesn't that kind of mean it's probably not there today. If nothing's
Yeah,
different
I get what
about
you're
this
saying.
God being here or not in the way that you live your life and everything you experience, it kind of seems like it's indistinguishable from it just not existing.
Exactly that. Yeah. How do you tell the difference between a God that doesn't interact with reality and a God that doesn't exist? Is a question to ask.
Well, you
I mean,
can't. This is why it's so annoying, because I get to that point, and there is literally nothing that I can say to get past their thing. It is impossible.
Well, what you may be running up against is for a lot of people, the sort of motivation underlying their belief systems and what they're willing to accept isn't necessarily a desire to believe what is true. Sometimes believing something that eases discomfort with the unknown is a very powerful thing for people. So for some people who you may interact with, it might not matter to them if they've got good evidence for what they believe. It might just be enough for them that they get a good feeling from the idea that there's something out there that caused everything. So then it becomes a question of, okay, how much do you care about whether or not your beliefs are true? I've asked people that exact question, and people have said, not much.
Yeah.
And it's like, all right, peace. That's it. It's like, because like, where do you go from there? So that might be what you run up against.
Hard. I'd find that kind of hard to ask, because that seems a little insulting. So
I know
they would go on defense.
Well, that is a thing that I've run up against frequently, because for a while I tried to open like nearly every discussion of this nature with, okay, as at a foundational level, like, how much do you care about whether the things you believe are true? And people reflexively will go, well, of course I care about whether or not my beliefs are true. And everybody does to some extent. I don't know if you're familiar with the work of Anthony Magnabosco and with street epistemology. Anthony is an outstanding
I've watched
resource.
the show for a long time, and I know Anthony
awesome.
and street epistemology. Yeah, I know. I've been watching for 5 years.
Awesome. Anthony pointed out to me one time, because I was being kind of a dick and was talking about, like, some people just don't give a shit about whether their beliefs are true. And he was like, well, you got to cut them a little bit of slack, because the question is whether or not that application of like epistemological standards is consistent. Because everybody cares about whether their beliefs are true with respect to whether or not, if they're at like a red light, if the light is actually red. They care about whether their beliefs are true with respect to whether or not the water they're drinking has poison in it, right? People care about whether their beliefs are true, but we have a tremendous ability as human beings to sort of compartmentalize and to go, okay, well, I care a whole lot about whether this stuff is true, but over here there's some wiggle room. So it's just a matter of figuring out where those inconsistencies lie for all of us, not just for religious people who we.
And there's value in being able to have something else that helps in these situations. So, and what I mean by that is, like, atheism is for the vast majority of people just a very, very simple thing. It's just like, hey, do you believe in God? Oh, no. Okay, great. And then you're done. But that doesn't help you wake up tomorrow. That doesn't help you figure out how to be a good person. And that's where things like secular humanism can really come in. Yeah, and maybe one of the things, like Kenneth said earlier, that's really tripping some of these people up that you're speaking with, is that kind of thought in the back of their head that if I lose this belief in an all-powerful creator, whatever the heck it is, if I lose that, I won't feel joy. I won't be able to love. I won't be a good person. And of course, I think all of us here, know that that's not true, and it's a little silly, right? But that's where you respond and say, look, funny enough, we have some good reasons to tell you to be a good person. We have some really good understanding of how I benefit and how you benefit and how the world benefits from doing X instead of Y.
We're a social species. We've evolved to be this way.
Exactly. And maybe some of those, different avenues that we've kind of talked about is going to at least be able to, maybe not break all the way through the very first time or the second or the third or the 17th or the, oh my God, why are we still talking about it, right? amount of times. But it's all about continuing to talk on it and continuing to normalize these conversations. 1,000 years ago, we couldn't do this, where people from all over the world could call and could ask questions about this stuff.
I feel
we can
so
today.
grateful. We're in like the best countries, in the best position, probably of literally the percent, like 2% of the world. We're so privileged, and especially me being a woman. Like even today, if I was born and not living in England as a woman, my life could be hell.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's certainly pros and cons to our our countries for sure. Hey, Laura, thank you very much for calling in. It's a good thing to think about, how to have conversations with people about epistemology. But we're going to move on to some other callers. Have a great weekend.